Baseball on FanCred with myself and John Heyman. We are here to chat about the latest and the greatest in the world of baseball. Two ways you can reach out to us. You can comment below, or if you're on the FanCred app, look in the little top right-hand corner. You'll see something that says the fan line. If you press that button, you'll end up in a green room with our producer, and then you can come on live and ask us questions. So you can ask anything. Obviously, this is a baseball-related show, but feel free to throw some weird ones out there if you'd like to. We have some awesome guests for you tonight. We have a Hall of Famer. We have a former player. We have a columnist and a writer. I mean, it's gonna be a fun little segment we got going on here. But first, John, let's talk about the Red Sox. 4-game sweep of the Yankees over the weekend. They have a 10 spot last night for the second straight night in a row. What has impressed you the most about this team?
Well, I guess that they just keep winning, and they're on pace for 114 victories. We get a team like this probably once every decade. The 98 Yankees, obviously fantastic, went on to win the World Series in a sweep. 2001 Mariners did not quite get there. They won 116 games. I mean, Boston, to be on a pace for 114, they have to go something like 19-28 over their final 47 games just to get to 100 victories. I mean, they play at the pace that they're on right now. They are an all-time great team. I think you asked me last week if they're an all-time great team. Well, I didn't think so. A week later, I kind of think so. After seeing that sweep against the Yankees, piling up the victories, it's amazing. I didn't see it coming. I think I had them as a wild card team. J.D. Martinez, fantastic signing. I knew that was a good signing. I didn't know how good. He may be MVP, or maybe Mookie Betts is MVP, maybe Sale is MVP. Just an incredible season.
We're slowly but surely changing your mind on the Red Sox. By next week, you might be like, yep, they're the best team ever. We'll see.
Well, they're certainly the best team this year, and they're the World Series favorite, or should be. I don't know. I've seen some odds that don't have them as the favorite, but I think those people are not paying attention. They have been clearly the best team, not even close. I mean, I understand the Yankees are without Judge and Sanchez now. Hey, Boston's been without Pedroia the whole year. Devers has been out at times. Sale was out for that series. Everybody has injuries. That's no excuse. They are the best. There's no question about that.
Time to welcome in our first guest of the evening, MSNBC commentator, former Boston Globe and Herald commentator, Mike Barnicle. I am so excited that you're joining us here today. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Jenny Dell, I still miss you walking the sidelines at the old ball yard.
I miss it. Thank you so much. I miss being there. So this is the perfect conversation starter right here. Where does this team rank in your mind as far as best Red Sox teams go?
It's certainly in the top 5 so far. It might emerge, 3 or 2. My favorite Red Sox team of all time is the 2004 Red Sox because of the result, and not necessarily the World Series result, but coming back and beating the Yankees 4 straight games in the American League playoffs. That was all time.
Mike, it's so great to have you on. Now, Mike is really a baseball expert. We had him on MLB Network, had no qualms about it. Obviously not a sports guy first, but he knows his Red Sox, no question about it. And they'll talk baseball, and usually Red Sox on Morning Joe. And he is clearly the Red Sox fan. I know a lot of other people on that show act like they're Red Sox fans, but some of them are from Alabama or somewhere else. You are a Bostonian through and through. There's no question about that.
John, the sad part of it is my wife would tell you, I have misspent so much of my life at that ball yard and dwelling over baseball and the agony of defeat and the exhilaration of victory. I mean, there's so much I could have done with my life, writing, entertainment. And instead, I've been, sitting in my seats, box 29, row A, right next to the dugout, Jenny.
Yep.
Through a series of managers, through a series of different teams. I used to love Will Middlebrooks at third base. Great stuff. Just great stuff.
Well, you gave us your favorite team, the 2004 team, and that's understandable, certainly winning in a sweep over St. Louis to break that, I think it was 85 or 86 year hex. You probably know it better than I do. Since you give us your favorite team, who would you say, I know you like Will Middlebrooks, but who are your, let's say, 5 favorite Red Sox of all time?
Ooh, tough one.
Number one is number 9, Ted Williams. I can remember watching and seeing him as a kid, just fantastic. Yaz, probably number 2. Pedro, number 3. And I think arguably, John, I don't know whether you would agree with me on this, and Jenny, I don't know whether you'd agree with me on this, but I think arguably, if you take a look at Pedro Martinez, 98, 99, I think you could make a case for those 2 years that he is the best pitcher in the history of baseball. It was the height of the steroid era, given his size, the fact that he was clean, and what he did in those 2 years, a phenomenal 2-year pitching performance.
Don, what do you think?
In division too, right? In the division with the Yankees, and that was the Yankees' height too, 98, 99. To do that, that one hitter that he threw with Chili Davis hit the home run was one of the greatest games I've ever.
Absolutely, Yankee Stadium, yeah.
You're mentioning the 2004 team. Obviously, 07. I was there in 2013. There were some really special moments there. Do you get the same feel about the team this year? Is there that intangible, they're just going to do whatever it takes to win feel that all those previous years had?
Yeah, it's interesting you raised that issue because this team, there have been a couple of teams over the past 3 or 4 years, Red Sox teams, that for one reason or another, weren't the most likable group of guys, at least on the field. I don't know how they were in the clubhouse, but this team is a very likable team, and fans have really attached themselves to this team. And I don't think it's tough playing in Boston. I mean, given the way the media hits the Red Sox all the time, and how come you don't win 161? We could take one loss, but 161, how come you don't do it? I don't think enough attention has been paid to what Alex Cora has done to change the culture of this team. And it's night and day. And this is no knock against John Farrell. He's a wonderful guy. But he suffered the same way a lot of other managers and players suffer in Boston with the spotlight. And he ended up being, a very uptight guy as manager. He's not that way personally. But Cora is different. And he brought a lightness into the clubhouse, and I think the players have responded. And it's critically important, John, I think you'd agree with me. He speaks Spanish. And he's 42 years of age, and he can, get along and understand younger players. Devers, 22 years of age. Mookie's only 24 or 25. And so there's a lot of camaraderie there between the manager and the players that I don't think existed to the extent that it does today.
Yeah, Alex Cora, a fantastic pick. I think it's a gamble to take someone who's really had limited managing and coaching experience. But I talked to A.J. Hinch. He was the bench coach there. Cora was in Houston for a year, and he said Cora would be absolutely fabulous in terms of the strategy. The only concern he had, which would be the concern for anybody just going into Boston, was how he would handle criticism. And, well, you're 81 and 34. We haven't seen much criticism to this point. We've seen a little bit, and he handled it very well early. So I was going to ask you a couple questions. First of all, I have trouble on the MVP this year. Real quick, which of the 3 Red Sox do you think is the MVP between Betts, Martinez, and Sale? And also, 2004, you mentioned it. It didn't seem like it changed things for you. I was afraid there was something special about being a Red Sox fan when they didn't win for 85 straight years. Did it change at all your mindset? I mean, you seem to be as great a fan as you ever were, but did it change the mindset, you think, generally through Red Sox Nation now that you are champions and not the jinx team?
Well, the MVP thing, I'll answer that first. I think it's got to be J.D. Martinez. I mean, he has made such an enormous difference on that team. And as a result of the threat of his bat, it's made Mookie and even, in a stronger position to hit. He's just changed the whole batting order. He's lengthened the batting order. And given what he's done, I'd have to cede the MVP to him, with Mookie a close second. On your second question, that's a really interesting question because it has changed, I think, the fan base. 2004, did to permanently change the fan base, finally sort of minimize the inferiority complex that the Boston Red Sox have always had and fans have always had toward the Yankees. Your buildings are taller, your harbor is better, your teams are always better, and that changed it. But so you get 2004 and then 2007, and the Patriots winning Super Bowls. I think it changed the culture of sports fans in general in New England, and now they expect to win. They take it for granted. which John and Jenny, you both know. I mean, you play 162 games. You can't take anything for granted. But there's a little lackadaisicalness now to the fan base that did not exist prior to 2004.
If the Sox go on the way that they are, which it looks like, they're going to finish off strong, which team has you most worried in the playoffs?
Houston. Houston is really good. Yeah. I don't know whether John agrees with me or not. They are a really, really good team. I think that would be, if it's Red Sox Houston in the playoffs, I think that's their toughest opponent. I don't think the National League presents a team close to the quality of the Houston Astros.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Two best teams are in the American League. I had Houston as the best team this year. I think everybody did. I don't think there's any great pick on my part. It turns out not to be a great pick because Boston has been the best team. You are clearly a baseball expert, but we know you are a world expert as well. So I was going to ask you one question. Some of us are a little concerned about how the world is going these days. What do you think is going to happen to everything? Do you have any predictions of how things are going to turn out here?
I have known Bob Mueller for a long time, and I think he likes me, but he wouldn't tell me if my coat was on fire. So I have no predictions other than this, that despite the disruptions and the damage being done, I think, to the office of the presidency, I always felt and still believe to right now, this very moment, that this country is stronger than any one individual in American politics.
I want to follow up on that. And obviously you have such a strong sports background, but also political background. And I wanted to get your take on the championship visits to the White House. Do you feel that it's just a rite of passage, or because of the way the president has been outspoken to certain athletes and in certain situations, do you feel like that whole honor of going to the White House when you win a championship is going to change dramatically, even more so than it already has?
Yeah, Jenny, I do think it has changed and will continue to change because the culture is so accelerated now. I mean, what social media has done to the culture around us is phenomenal in such a very short period of time. I mean, Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and all that stuff that exists, it has changed so much. And look after all, whether you're the Golden State Warriors, the Boston Red Sox, or whatever, as individuals, it is an honor to go to the White House. There's no doubt about that. But it's your choice whether you want to participate in something like that. If you feel so offended by the behavior of the president or the policies of a specific administration, I think you have a right to say, hey, I love my teammates, but I'm going to take a pass on this. I'll be at the hotel waiting for the bus to come back with you guys.
That's fair.
Very good.
That's fair. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. And I always love talking to the best of the Red Sox. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
He's great.
Fantastic. And an incredible writer, too, for people who don't recall his columns in the Boston Globe and the Herald. Just one of the best columnists in the United States.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about closers. There's been a couple blown saves, especially this week. We have Kimbrel with two of them. Not that it's a huge issue, but Chapman, Cody Allen. Which of these teams do you feel like should have some concern, maybe a little bit of panic about their late inning situations?
Yeah, it's not Boston. They don't need to have any concern about anything. Craig Kimbrel is the best. They have the best team. The team is the New York Yankees. Aroldis Chapman just has not been very good. He had an outing a couple weeks ago, just before the All-Star game, in which he ended with 11 straight balls, had to be bailed out by Chasen Shreve, who they basically just gave away later. I was very concerned about this. I think I tweeted something like, they better go get Zach Britton now after witnessing that. And, of course, I had 10,000 Yankee fans coming at me on Twitter telling me I'm crazy and I love the Red Sox and I hate the Yankees and all this other stuff. Well, that's not true. None of that's true. But I do feel that there should be some concern right now with Aroldis Chapman, with the control. Of course, they put Britton in, and he gave up a 2-run home run to Jose Abreu to tie the game in the last outing. So, there's no guarantee with anybody. You'd think the Yankee situation would be the best with three guys with 130-plus saves, but if I'm the Yankees, I'm concerned right now.
Random question I'm throwing out there. You just mentioned Twitter. Do you read all the tweets that are sent to you?
No, I'm unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not able to read them all. There are just too many. Some days I'll read one or two and they'll be so bad that I just don't read anymore. Other days I get fired up and fire back. And, I thought I blocked like 100,000 people, something like that. But I think they keep score. And somebody told me I'd only blocked, I think, 3,500 or something like that. It shocks me because I feel like I'm blocking 50 a day. There's a lot of people out there just trolling and trying to annoy us. And, I feel like I am very satisfied to block them, and that's it. So I blow off steam that way.
I do the same with blocking. When I first started working for the Red Sox, one of the writers in Boston told me that, people are going to tweet terrible things at you. They said two pieces of advice. First, go to their account. If you're really offended and you feel like you want to write something back, go to their account. If they have under 1,000 followers, automatically ignore it. Just pretend like it never happened. But if you still feel the need that you need to write back, write up a tweet, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, reread the tweet that you were going to put out there, and decide if that was a good idea or not. And I've done that so many times. I don't think I've ever once actually sent the tweet the morning after being like, you know what? It's not even worth it.
Wow. You are very wise, very mature person. I don't know how you got like that. I'm a generation older than you. I couldn't do it. I fire off it. And I've seen people have 0 followers and I'm still coming back at them. I mean, that's crazy, but I can't help myself.
Just put it aside. Put it aside. All right. I just want to go back to the Red Sox for a second here. So right now they're on pace for 114 wins. Do you think that they are actually going to get there? I mean, is that likely to happen?
At this point, I've doubted them so much and been wrong at every turn. I'm going to switch. I don't like to do that. I think they will get to the 114 wins. I don't want to predict World Series. You never know what can happen. The best team doesn't always win. We've had wild card teams win. Anybody can win. I don't think it's a crapshoot quite, but there's a lot of luck involved. So I don't think the best team necessarily is going to win. But in terms of the number of victories, they're at 114. They're almost two-thirds of the way through the season at this point. So I think they're going to get right there. They're going to get to 110 at least.
And we were obviously just talking to Mike about what JD Martinez has brought to this team. Your thoughts overall? I mean, obviously Boston knew what they were getting in a player like him, but do you think they had expectations for him to go out and do what he's been able to do?
So many guys have signed these big free agent deals everywhere, Boston, New York, wherever, and just not been the player that they were expected to be. I think at this point, we're almost expecting people to flop. And going into a city like Boston, never easy. I mean, he played in Detroit, he played in Arizona, fine cities. They're not Boston. There is definitely something different, something special about playing in Boston. Not everybody can handle it, as we've seen. They've had hit or miss situation in terms of free agents or big acquisitions. Obviously, Chris Sale has absolutely thrived, and JD Martinez has absolutely thrived. He was brilliant in the second half last year, and I think that he and his representative Scott Boras, were surprised at the fact that there weren't teams lining up for him, ready to give him those 9-figure contracts. You had Arizona, which knew him well. He had been there. He had something like a 7-something slugging percentage for them in half of a season. They knew it, but there weren't a lot of teams that were willing to go there. I think that they were wrong. I didn't understand that at the time. They certainly have been proven wrong. Give Dave Dombrowski credit. He knew JD Martinez from Detroit. He went out and got him and made the best free agent signing of the winter. And he's got him for at least another year. Of course, he's got 3 opt-outs now after 2 years, after 3 years, and after 4. So, well, is it $110 million? I believe it looks like a bargain. He may turn that into $150 million based on how he's performed this year if he repeats that again next year.
We mentioned it a little bit earlier, but how can a player like Martinez really change the lineup? I mean, you see what Mookie's doing this year, and Mookie obviously is incredible in his own right, but how can a player like Martinez being on your team change the dynamic of the team?
Yeah, it really seems to have done that. Exactly what you just said. When they had Big Papi, they were going crazy, thriving, going on all cylinders, and everybody was performing. Bogarts, Betts, everybody was doing fantastic. Big Papi retired. I can't blame him for that. He had a fantastic career, certainly a Hall of Fame career. now you don't have Big Papi, and it seemed like everybody took a step or 2 steps or more backward last year. They bring in J.D. Martinez, and I think part of that is being in the lineup with him. But another big part of that is he is there as a kind of a third hitting coach. I mean, he really is a hitting savant, and he helps out with all of the other hitters. So I think that is a part of it as well that people don't see, that's understated in terms of what his value is.
I am excited to announce that our next guest is backstage and will be joining us right now. And it is no one other than the Hall of Fame closer, Trevor Hoffman. Trevor, welcome to Inside Baseball on FanCred. First, I have to say that my husband, Will, loves you. He misses you. He sends his best.
I miss Will, too. You tell him
Will.
I appreciate it. And my boys miss him, too. He was nothing but kind to my little guys in spring training. So see if I can center myself here for you guys.
Oh, you look good.
You look good.
Yeah. So I want to start off, obviously, a Hall of Fame career, but you were a shortstop. You went to University of Arizona as a shortstop. You were drafted to the Reds as a shortstop. So the transition from shortstop to pitching, how did that come about? And did you have an idea that you had the talent that you did when it first came up to you?
Yeah, I really didn't. And it was a little scary, but the scary part was thinking that the last time I threw a baseball from the mound was when I was in Little League. And so when they kind of said, you know what, this isn't progressing very well for you as an infielder, we're going to think about relying on your arm a little bit, and we're going to see what you look like on the mound every third day in A-ball. And, you know, I was dumb enough to think it could work, and fortunately, good people along the way that helped me along. And I think probably the first best step I had was Frank Funk was my manager, my first stop, and Frank was a former pitching coach for the Kansas City Royals at the big league level, and he kept things really simple for me. I had a lot of success, and you know, things really worked out well. I've had a lot of.
I like the way you put that. Things worked out well. You have a good way with words. Your Hall of Fame speech was absolutely fabulous. Not just because you mentioned my neighbor Rick Thurman, but you touched on everybody. I think everybody you came across who's going to help you, you're fabulous. I'm sure that after hearing that, I'm convinced you did very well in school, and you're quite a good writer. You did a fabulous job. But what I want to ask you about is the entire process. You didn't get in the first couple. I always voted for you, but you didn't get in the first couple times, I think, and came close. You know, how was that for you? You didn't say anything negative. You just stuck right through and waited it out. I mean, you know, do you think the process is fair? Okay. Do you think we do an okay job? I don't know. Sometimes I think we're a little too harsh, my own opinion. We do only have 10 slots to vote for now, and I think there are more than 10 deserving guys at this point with the backlog and the steroid guys and all that other stuff. So it is a very tense time and also somewhat negative. I mean, even when you were giving your great speech, I'm following on Twitter, and there are some people who are just anti-closer. They're not necessarily anti-you, but I mean, give it a rest for the 10 minutes while you're up there. And by the way, congratulations on sticking to 10 minutes and doing a fantastic job with that. But what do you think about the process? I know that was rather long-winded, but what do you think about the whole thing?
You got a lot in there, John. That's no doubt about that. Yeah, I thought I mentioned you right behind the in there, so I appreciate you hanging in there with me. You know, I spent probably the first 2 months after January, 3 months really, just kind of gathering some thoughts, gathering maybe bullet points that might be important to speak about. And so I didn't want to get started too quick because I felt like, one, it was going to get overhauled pretty fast, and I just kind of wanted to, again, get to the bigger picture. My wife and I, Tracy, we kind of sat down and we kind of, you know, banged it out. We kind of talked a little bit about the things that were important in my career, those that helped along the way, and yet have kind of an overall general view so it didn't get too specific and kind of career generally oriented. And so I was pleased with the way it came out. I agree with you. I think the process, I was humbled, you know, being able to go in with Tram and Jack. I think if that didn't give you a perspective of what a wait could really be like, having been on the ballot for 15 years and then have to wait for a modern day era committee to get you in, I don't know what's going to humble you. The grace that those two guys had, and how pleased they were that their name was finally called, and to have to wait 3 years was not a problem at all. I actually think the backlog is kind of getting diminished a little bit. We've had a rush of guys that have gotten in over the last 3-4 years, so I think the ballot is kind of cleaning up. But you're going to hear no squawking from me. As a closer, I get that the specialty role is not maybe high on some people's list, but it was truly an honor to be there with the other greats in the game, to be recognized and to have a moment that was special. There's very few things in life that really meet your expectation or exceed it, and the induction weekend at Cooper State.
Well, I appreciate your fantastic attitude, because I know that there's a lot of guys who don't get in immediately, and they immediately start to think that the people are against them, and we're not voting for them because we don't like them personally, or the process isn't good. But so we really appreciate the way you've handled everything. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. And there are a lot of guys who aren't in who probably deserve to be in. It's probably not just one or two guys. Can you think of one or two offhand that you recall either playing with or against, where you said to yourself, you know what, I think this guy's a Hall of Famer, and he's just not getting that due from the writers? And I believe there are guys like that.
Yeah, honestly, I think Fred McGriff is a guy that, we kind of overlapped maybe about a month before the fire sale continued. But to be so close really to the 500 mark as a home run guy, was the main guy in the lineup that you knew where he was at coming back around as a pitcher. You knew where he was at in the lineup. Played a long time, playing on some great teams, had a lot of impact on those teams that he was on. And he's such a great guy. I think he's a great ambassador for the game and still does a lot of great things with the game. And so he's a guy that's at the top of my mind. I think Mike Mussina is a guy that's going to gain a lot of ground in the year coming up. Billy Wagner's another guy where our careers paralleled one another quite a bit. I didn't think he at 10%, 15% where he finished up this year isn't indicative of how dominant of a closer he was. And people can kind of argue our careers differently. He was dominant from a strikeout, a hit given up guy. I might have garnered a few more saves along the way, but he's a guy that certainly I think the game would look at and go, he was pretty good at what he did. So those are a few guys that are at the top of my mind.
Some good former guys. What about the current crop of closers that are out there right now? Who's most impressive to you?
For me, it's your guy in Boston. We had Craig just for a little bit here in San Diego, and then a gentleman up north in L.A., Kenley Jansen. Those are the two guys for me that stand out. Their careers are kind of on that path. They're about 8, 9, 10 years in. Inning mark. The saves total is a little bit different between the two, but equally dominant. The strikeout per 9 is there. The hits per 9. And so if they can continue this run for 5, 6, 7 more years, I certainly think that they'll have their names called at some point in time.
As I said, I loved your speech. I loved the way you touched on everybody important in your life. Your mother, the great fan, your agent, as I mentioned, you had the teammates rise. I thought it was terrific. And one person who was sadly not able to be there is your father. You mentioned him, and I think you said he was the singing usher. And I really don't know that story. I probably should. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. I'd be happy to. Dad was a little bit older when he had me. I was a bit of an oops baby. He had me at 55. My mom was 35. He was a late addition to the Marine Corps in World War II. He's 30 years old when he enlisted. But he was a singer by trade prior to that, and then went back to it afterwards after he met my mom. And the two of them actually put their careers on hold. My dad was a singer that I mentioned, and my mom was a ballerina. And they met in a show over in London back in the 50s, and ended up getting married, ended up coming back. Dad performed in Vegas. He performed in Hollywood, did a lot of different shows of the World's Fair and things like that. But when he retired basically because my older brother met him at the front door and said, "Hey, Mom, who is that at the front door?" And he quit on the spot, went and applied to the post office. And his second job was he loved baseball, so he went down to apply as an usher for for the Angels. And so whenever I-5 traffic, as you know, can get a little crazy, somebody would get stuck in it, and they knew that they could go and find Dad wherever he was at on his particular post that day. He'd have his harmonica with him. He'd tune up, and he'd go and sing the national anthem. And so he was kind of, like I said, the original closer. He and actually Mr. Autry did some work together as well, the Singing Cowboy, and then my dad as well. But it was an interesting side fact as well is my brother signed with the Red Sox. They were negotiating second round, same year as Alan Trammell. Joe Stevenson was a scout, and my brother asked, goes, Joe, if I'd make it to the big leagues, I'd like my father to be able to come back and sing the national anthem. So they did their due diligence, and they realized he's actually a singer. And Glenn made the opening day roster in '81. I believe it was Carlton Fisk's first game back with the White Sox. Harry Carey was on the announcing. Somehow ESPN got it. They showed my dad singing the anthem at Fenway Park. And then 30 years later, that was used at my retirement ceremony at the end of it all, when the flags were brought out onto the field, the colors were brought out on the field, and then they showed my dad up on the big screen, that particular rendition that he gave at Fenway Park. So a great man, great American. Unfortunately, you're right, couldn't be there, but he was born the day after the Titanic went down was when my dad was born. So I got a little bit of perspective of having me at 55, what that'll do.
Wow.
How special is that? We have a fan question that someone wrote in, Will Vogel, in our comments. He said he wants to know who is the toughest hitter for you to strike out.
Well, Will, it kind of feels like they were all really tough hitters when they walked into the batter's box, just peering down in the strike zone. But Todd Helton was always a guy that I had a little bit of difficulty with. When I found out that he was actually a pitcher in high school and college a little bit, and his specialty pitch was a changeup, I kind of figured out why I could never get him out. And so a little bit of insight on what I was trying to do and how I was going to try and get him out. But he was a guy that was a little bit of a thorn in my side. A lot of guys make adjustments at bat to at bat, but Todd was able to do it pitch to pitch, and he'd waste a lot of good pitches, and I just get frustrated. And I should just walk him, but he ended up getting his knocks on me, that's for sure.
We have another fan question as well. Jeff G asked, did you have any strange pregame or postgame rituals that lasted throughout your career?
I call them routines more than I call them rituals, but, I made sure the stuff was washed. I never really went out with something that was game used from the day or the weeks before, but I didn't like to step on foul lines. I'd have to have 3 big bottles of water from the first inning to the third inning just so I'd be hydrated for the end of the ball game. I try and eat at the same time just so my body would get acclimated. I'd paint my shoes when I'd come in the 5th inning religiously. I didn't want the clubbies to have to worry about that. I kind of got them tightened up, and then a hot shower before I got the game day stretch like the starters do, and then out to the bullpen. And it's amazing what creatures of habits we can be, but
goodness,
unfortunately, part of our routines.
And they say baseball players aren't superstitious. Right. Yeah, I know. How did you get through tough stretches in your career? Not everyone's career is just smooth sailing. Everyone has their ups and downs. For you, what would you do to get through those tough moments?
Yeah, everybody does have them. And I think that's really kind of the reason why we talk so much at length with some of our minor league kids now about developing a routine. I was on the other end of, the failure of the game, trying to be a hitter and a fielder, and the 0 for 4s and an error the night before would sit with you, and, it just wouldn't go away. And so when I did make the transition kind of to pitching, I went to the other side. I went to the success rate kind of side. And so that was fun too. But the big thing was, okay, I had success yesterday with 15 minutes of running. I got my sprint work in. I did my arm weights. I got my soft tissue that I needed. I ate the way I wanted to. I got plenty of rest. I'm hydrated. And I got the save yesterday. I did my job yesterday. Just because it didn't happen today, let's not try and reinvent the wheel or come up with something completely different, but trust the process. And more often than not, it was something that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, you had 40 saves, I believe, 9 times. I'm not sure anybody's done that. And 601 saves, I think, too. Incredible, incredible career. But what people remember you for is the Hell's Bells. Whose idea was that? How did that get started? And does that actually help you think, during the games?
Yeah, I don't think I would have reached 40 saves 9 times had I not Hell's Bells. So I'm going to lean on the song for sure. But, we brought it out in the 98 season. It was a good season for the Pods. I kind of was just coming out to some random stuff, typical, big hair 80s bands of the 80s was kind of right up my alley. But Chip Bowers and Eric Myers came down to the clubhouse. I go, hey, Trev, you're kind of random. You're all over the place. Dr. Charles Steinberg at the time was with us, and he kind of came up with the idea that, great guy, that, you know what, we need to recreate Major League Baseball and what Charlie Sheen does when he comes out with Wild Thing. but we think this song by AC/DC would be really cool. And I go, let's give it a try. And the first time we played in Qualcomm, the bells kind of scared everybody. I came running in off the field from the bullpen, and it kind of seemed to take right away. And so I don't think anybody, again, thought it would become as big and as much of a kind of a moment that people really enjoyed waiting for. And so I could always rely on that energy coming out of the bullpen when the song Hell's Bells would start, the first chimes of the bell would go, no matter how I felt. And so it was always a blessing to be able to have that.
Such a cool memory. You played 18 years. What would you say is the most important thing that you took away from your career in baseball that you use in your everyday life now?
Question. Consistency in anything we do, I think, is vital. I think we're always striving. I heard this the other day. You don't strive for perfection. You can strive for excellence. And I think that allows you some maneuverability on anything that you might be trying to do on any given day. And so I think if you try and meet that level on a daily basis on whatever you perform at and whatever obstacles are in front of you, you're going to fall short of perfection. There's only, that's not going to happen. And so, by achieving excellence and giving your best effort that you have on that given day, you can at least walk away knowing one way or another, however the outcome was, that you gave your best shot.
Hall of Fame advice right there. Trevor, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Have a great. He's great.
Isn't he terrific? First Hall of Famer.
I know. First of many, hopefully. First of many.
Right.
So before we get to our next guest, let's talk the Nationals. So 2 relievers get dumped for non-performance issues. What do you know about the Kinsler and Sean Kelly situation? Could you shed a little light on what's going on over there for us?
Yeah, I mean, there were thoughts, rumors, discussions about maybe shaking things up and trading Bryce Harper or rebuilding or getting below the luxury threshold, and they ultimately didn't do that. And that was the right call, and you'll see how Harper's performed in this August. And the Nats are not out of it. I mean, they have an excellent team on paper. They have talent. They did the right thing. I think Mike Rizzo, the GM, is an excellent general manager. But these are interesting stories, and they had their own kind of mini shakeup. And the Kelly one was right out front for us. He threw his mitt during that 25-4 game. It was, I believe, 25-1 when he came in the game. You can read into what you want. He was looking into the dugout. Some people were saying he was glaring into the dugout. He was upset to be in the game. I think if you talk to people around him, they say he was upset. One umpire was rushing him. One umpire was telling him to take his time. It was just an ugly situation overall. But when he gave up the home run, I think it was a 3-run homer to make it 25-4, he threw his mitt on the field. And obviously Mike Rizzo and some of the other Nats people didn't love this. And there was a confrontation somewhere near the clubhouse. I'm not sure if it was in the clubhouse. And Rizzo had some words for Kelly, and he ultimately DFA'd him, a guy who had a whip of 1 and was really performing well for the team. And, I think it was kind of a statement that Mike Rizzo was making. And we'll see. I think they're off to a pretty good start in the second half. Maybe it inspires somebody. I don't know. Kelly is a really good guy. I've known him. He was in New York. He had definitely had a bad moment there. Obviously Mike Rizzo didn't enjoy that moment and didn't take too well to it. And I think Kelly realized that he made a mistake and he was remorseful, but it was kind of too late. Now he's with Oakland and he's fine with that. They're in a playoff position right now. And the other situation, the other reliever that Mike Rizzo, the GM, decided to say get rid of, excise, however you want to put it, he traded him to the Cubs, was Brandon Kinsler. And the GM suspected that Kinsler was behind some quote in Yahoo. Jeff Passan wrote a story in which he quoted some unnamed person who was somehow connected to the Nats saying that their clubhouse is a mess. And I'm not sure why Mike Rizzo or other people with the Nats, I don't think Mike was alone, thought that this was Brandon Kinsler. But it doesn't appear that it was Brandon Kinsler. That's why he was traded, though. I mean, he traded him because he felt that he wasn't with the team, and they felt that quote was inappropriate. And, some people since then have said, well, there were other stories, but Brandon wasn't quoted in the other story in the Washington Post, which was kind of talking to players who came out and used their names and said, I think we love Davey. He's a work in progress in terms of the bullpen. And it wasn't that negative a story if you're probably not with the Nats, but if you're with the Nats, you probably didn't take it that well, I guess. But I don't know how Brandon Kintzler got fingered in this, because I think the worst people at figuring out who the unnamed sources are the actual teams. Brandon Kintzler came out and said, I don't even know Jeff Passan. I think he even pronounced his name wrong as Passan. And his agent said, I don't know Jeff Passan. And Jeff Passan told Theo, I don't know Brandon Kintzler. It's not him. I don't know why they thought it was him, but apparently that's the reason that he was traded or one of the reasons he was traded to the Cubs. There might be more to the story that we're not hearing, but there was no question that Rizzo and other people thought that it was Kintzler, and I'm pretty sure that it was not Kintzler who was part of that story. So you never know what's going to happen. Kintzler, I guess, told Rizzo, I swear in my children's life. He actually said that. It wasn't me. I don't know the guy. But he was already a Cub at this point. And at this point, he's like, you know what? He wanted me to go to the Cubs. I'm with the Cubs. Not such a terrible situation. I'll deal with it.
There's worse places you could end up.
I agree, 100%.
Strange situation, though. Our next guest is ready to join us, Bengie Molina. Welcome to Inside Baseball. World champion, two-time Gold Glover. Bengie, thank you for jumping on with us here. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is my first time doing this. This is awesome.
Welcome. It's fun, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And how can you top Hoffman interview? After that, I don't want to talk.
You're in good hands, we promise you. So you grew up in a pretty successful family. What was it like as a kid growing up with your brothers?
It was awesome. But we never competed on the field, right? Like, we never talk about, okay, you struck out 2 times, you did this, you did that. On the field, my dad was in charge, so we didn't have to do that. Now, off the field, we were having fun with our Nintendo or Atari. Well, Atari's for me, right? I mean, I'm the oldest one, but we were having fun with all PlayStation and all that stuff, and we were competitive. And Yadi and Josie would throw their controllers whenever they lose, so they didn't like losing. So I mean, it was fun. It was fun growing up. Oh, baseball though.
I'm sure.
Quite a remarkable story. There was a great book written about the whole clan, your father, the inspiration, and it's really amazing, the dynasty of catchers that you guys have. And you and Jose were the catchers for the world champion 2002 Angels. And, of course, you had quite a career. You came up as a defensive catcher, won 2 Gold Gloves, as Jenny referenced. And you turned yourself into quite a hitter. I think you hardly ever struck out. I think there was one year you had the fewest strikeouts per at bat of anybody. So, and you had home runs too. You were a home run hitter. You had quite a career. But I do want to ask you about your brother. And I know you're a major supporter. You don't have a jealous streak. Your brother, I think he's a Hall of Famer. There's kind of a debate out there. Is he a Hall of Famer or not? I'm not sure why that's a debate. I think it's pretty obvious he's a Hall of Famer. Did you recognize his incredible – I mean, obviously you're an incredible player in your own right, but you recognize that he had something special going on here and at some point? And what do you think about that whole debate?
The whole debate is hard for me. Obviously, he's my brother, right? Everybody's going to say, oh, yeah, he's his brother. But I'm being honest with you. Think about it. How many catchers of his legacy has been on a field? And that will give you the answer, right? So, and literally, John, and you know, I knew that he was going to be great when he was like 15, 16, and he was in the on-deck circle, and one of his batters got thrown out at the head, right? So before that batter got up and tried to fight the pitcher, Yadier was already on the mound trying to get that pitcher's kicking his butt, right? So I took him to the amateur league in Puerto Rico, which that league is average like 35 years old or 30 to 35-year-olds. So what does that tell me? He's 15 playing with these grown-up men a so short time. And then all of a sudden in 2004, he's acting up and he's calling out David Ortiz. He's calling out Manny for doing signs or something. I mean, at that age, that's crazy, man. So that told me when he was 15, 16, I was like, man, this kid is going to be something special. And if you ask my brother, he'll tell you the same thing. And look, we weren't wrong.
Jack in the comments had a question for you. He said, when you and your brothers played on the same team, how did you decide who would catch?
Oh no, that was easy. I think Stoneman was the GM. He called me and he said, "Hey, Vimo, I want to ask you something. I mean, we're about to sign your brother. What do you think about that?" And he was expecting something other answer, I guess. But I told him, sign him up. Of course, I want to play with my brother. And he goes, "Yeah, but I don't want you to feel like he's gonna compete against you." I said, "I don't care. Even if he wins the position, I will be happy being a backup. Now, don't send me to AAA though. Just So I told him, and then we signed him, and it was a joy playing with Jose. I don't know if you guys know him. He's a baseball guy. He loved talking about baseball. He loved talking about pitching and getting zeros on the board, which I love it. I love it. And so we went to have lunch together before the field. We after the game talking about what we did and how the pitchers did. I mean, it was unbelievable experience. I wish I could have spent more time with him, obviously on the field, but the business side of baseball attacked me. So that's what happened.
Now, you've had a really interesting career, but 2010 was quite an interesting season for you. I believe you started with the Giants and then you went to Texas, I think, in the middle of the year. So what was that like for you I don't think there are too many players who were on both World Series teams. I do want to know, did you get a full share for both teams or a half share for both, or how did that work? And what did you think about the whole situation? And unfortunately, the Giants ended up winning that time for you.
It was a really tough year for me. I spent 3.5 years with those kids, knowing them and knowing their families. And, I mean, we became brothers out there. I took care of them as much as I could. I tried to be a father figure to some because they were so young. And I was trying to help them out. But not only that, their family, making them, enjoy baseball and all that. So, for me being traded, I don't know why they traded me. There was a young guy. I mean, I don't even know who his name is. Buster Posey. Who's that?
Terrible decision. I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, horrible. So, they traded me. It was a tough, in my heart, it was really tough to take. But at the same time, you have to turn the page and go to a new team that actually wants you, right? I mean, because they wanted me. Texas and John Daniel has been awesome. They've been great to my family. In 2010, obviously, we didn't win the whole thing against my old teammates, which it was really weird. When I was sitting in the dugout and they were celebrating, I'm like, okay, do I go celebrate with them or do I stay here? What are we doing here? So it was kind of weird. It was really weird, but I have fun in Texas. They had a a nice group of guys, very fun. Some of them are still playing, Andrews, Nelson Cruz, Blatty was there, Josh Hamilton was there. I mean, we were stacked, man. We had a great team, and it was like a family in short time, right? Like 2 months, 3 months that I was there. They already made a statue of
I
me.
was going to say.
Come on, man. Can't top that. I was with the Giants 3.5, and with the Angels since '93 to 2005. I don't have a statue there.
I saw your selfie with your statue, the going to the show statue. Were you surprised about that?
I was kind of surprised. I knew the moment was special, though. I mean, I was really aware of that. I know that moment of them going to the World Series, of us going to the World Series for the first time on the franchise. So I knew about that moment. I didn't know about the statue at all. They called me like maybe 4 days before they had it done, and they said, "Hey, you want to fly over here and you want to do the unveiling and the statue?" I said, "What the heck statue for?" I mean, and he goes, "No, you and Feliz jumping on you guys' arms," and I thought it was amazing. I mean, it's a great honor to tell you guys for a guy that really couldn't run and can't run because I haven't got better yet. So for a guy that can't run and had not that much skills like others to be able to enjoy a career that I had, it was awesome. And not only that, for the statue, it really touched my heart.
Now, you're around the Cardinals a lot. Obviously, your brother is there. I think you do some Spanish broadcasting for the Cardinals, and they are over 500. But the Cardinals, they're expecting to be fantastic every year. They're not so happy with the way things are going. They have a new manager in there now. Gone wrong to this point. I feel funny putting it that way because they are over 500. And you feel like they're going to straighten things out and somehow get in the playoffs?
You know what, John? I think bullpen is a big part of any team, right? This is my belief, though. I don't know if everybody else have their opinion, but from my experience playing in the major leagues, bullpen, those last 3 innings are huge. And if you look at all the teams that are winners right now in their first place, their bullpens are pretty good, man. They can hold you down to 2-1 or 1-0 games and 3-2s. So for me, when they did that bullpen change, I think they help out their own by bringing all those young guys. And don't forget, those young guys are called the Memphis Mafia for a reason. I mean, they were really good in AAA, so they know they're winners. So for you to bring them up and have Yadi behind the plate to help them out too, you can see that the last 29 innings, only 4 guys have 29 innings, 3 earned runs. I mean, that's crazy, right? For a bullpen. So, and that's been making a difference for those guys. I think the bullpen is huge on this, on any team, right?
As a catcher, how hard is it to integrate a new pitcher on the fly when you're getting these guys coming up from AAA, even though they're so talented? The relationship is so key. So how difficult is it?
It's very difficult. You have to have a lot of talks. You have to be on the plane instead of sleeping. You have to go talk to them. Hey, man, what do you like to do here? What do you like to do there? I want to be in the right spot for you. Do you want me to sit on the corner? Do you want me to sit 3/4 on the corner? Do you like to pitch up? Do you like to pitch in? You like the quarter? You like the slider? What's your best pitch? What's your second best pitch? I mean, it goes on and on. You have to know all this about every single pitcher because every single pitcher, when they get up there, it counts, and you have to be aware of all that. So it's challenging, like Yadi said. It's very challenging, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun. These guys are very talented.
Hey, Bengie, I wanted to ask you, wasn't there was a time I'm kind of remembering you hit a home run and you didn't get credit for a run, something like that. Do you recall what happened exactly? I think you're the only guy in the history that happened to. How did that happen?
It was crazy. I don't know if you remember that edge in San Francisco where the edge comes out of the wall and right. It goes to the field. So if it hits that corner or that edge, it's automatically a home run. So I hit that corner and I got to second, and then Bruce Bochy didn't ask for the replay right away. He pinch run for me first. So by pinch running for me first, I cannot go back in the game, right? So that's how it happened. It was very weird. I hit the ball, and here I am in the first step giving high five to Burr, scoring the. Oh wow, it was hilarious.
So they got the replay afterward and determined it was a home run. Did the other guy get credit for the run then? Who pinch ran for you? You recall?
Yeah, Burris. Remember?
Oh, yes. Emmanuel Burris. Right. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. He got the run, man. I needed that to make it.
He owes you. He owes you. That's not right, I tell you.
I need it for the Hall of Fame. I'm missing the run,
man. Don in the comments has a question for you. He said, which catcher are you most impressed with in the game today? Non-Yachty division.
I was going to say Yachty, but so I love how Salvador Perez works. I like Contreras' energy. I don't like so much. Obviously, the way he catches and stuff like that, he has a lot of things needs to work on. But his energy behind the plate is amazing. He's a stud behind the plate. Talking about energy, so let me see. Buster Posey's always been one of my favorite guys. Very smart behind the plate. Obviously, he's slowing down because of hip injury or whatever he has going on. We all catchers go through all kinds of stuff. So there's quite a few out there. Real Muto is pretty good in Miami. He can hit the ball too. So there's a bunch out there coming up. I hope that every catcher that is listening to these, take care of the pitchers. That's the main thing. I don't want them thinking, if I'm a manager someday, which I wish I have the opportunity, it'll be a catcher that takes care of my pitchers, become family, talk to them, make them better at every moment. I don't want them thinking, okay, I went 0 for 3, let's go fastball here, let's go home, things like that. So catcher is a position that you really have to forget really quick that you went 0 for 4 and you try to get that win 2-1 in the ninth inning. You really have to throw it in the trash and try to win the game. So if you do that, you're a great catcher, man.
So you said you're interested in managing?
Oh, I've been interested for a while. I think it'll be great for me to try to see if I could get 25 guys and see what I can do with them and see if I can help them out, right? And see how far we can go for many years, man. It'll be so interesting to see if I could do that. You know, after watching a lot of managers out there that, I mean, if they could do it, I think I can. So hopefully my opportunity comes. Me and Yadi and Hosey, we're gonna be in the baseball classic, but it's 23 and under, and that's gonna be played in Colombia in October. So Yadi's gonna be the manager, Hosey's gonna be the bench coach, and I'm gonna be the hitting coach. So for Puerto Rico, so that'll be pretty interesting. I don't know how it's gonna be. I don't promise anything. So
we'll be following. We'll be following. Well, best of luck to you, Bengie. Thank you so much for joining us on Inside Baseball.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
That's pretty cool. All the brothers. I didn't know that.
Guy. And he obviously did a great job with his younger brother, who should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think Bengie Molina, with that personality, would make a very good manager. I'd like to see him get that opportunity.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Now, before we go, because we are almost at 9 p.m., question about the New York Mets GM situation. So obviously Sandy Alderson stepped away for medical reasons. Do you think they are going to be hiring within or looking outside for that GM spot?
Yeah, it seems pretty clear now that they're going to go outside for the GM spot. They are going to have a search. I guess it's possible they could turn back. It seemed like John Ricco, who's a terrific young man who everybody loves in the organization, very loyal guy, really bright guy, had been the heir apparent. But obviously things have not gone great the last couple of years. They did get to the World Series in 2015. They did build a nice have gone lately. It seems like they're determined to go outside. And, you know, some names are starting to come out, but I think we're very, very, very early in the process. In fact, I'm not sure they've begun the process, and it may wait until after the season or very late in the season. But Ben Cherington, who had been with Boston and obviously did a very nice job building up the farm system there, and that would certainly interest the Mets. And he made some nice free agent moves in 2013 that enabled them to win the World Series. Not big ticket items necessarily, but Stephen Drew and Napoli and 6 or 7 guys, Ryan Dempster, helped them win the World Series. So he's a guy whose name's been mentioned. You know, we hear some little whispers of perhaps David Stearns, who's a New Yorker. He's in Milwaukee. I don't think that Mark Adnazio is going to let him go. Mike Chernoff, who's in Cleveland as the GM, I doubt they're going to let him go. He's a New Jersey. So a lot of good names. Hasn't really gotten to the stage yet where they're talking to anybody, I don't believe, but they're pretty determined, I think, to go outside at this point.
We're going to end with one more fan line question from Matthew. He wants to know about the AL Cy Young race. Matthew, are you joining us on here, or is this just a comment? Let's give it a second to see. There he is. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, how's it going, guys? So obviously with Chris Sale on the DL and Luis Severino having a pretty bad July, who are some names to look out for in the Cy Young race down the stretch?
It's all based on stats these days, so I have to have all the stats in front of me. But off the top of my head, I think Chris Sale deserves the Cy Young. Now, I guess we'll see how long he's out and how that diminishes his numbers and, how people do down the stretch. Obviously, Houston, a lot of guys have had great years. Morton has had a very good year, and Cole and Verlander all have been very, very good for the Astros. I think Severino has basically pitched his way out of it at this point. I mean, to me, Chris Sale's been the best pitcher in the league. So if the award were today, I think Chris Sale should be the Cy Young Award winner.
All right. What about a guy?
All right. Well, that's it. It's 9 o'clock. That was a fun hour, John.
Very good. Terrific guests.
We should do this again next week, right?
I think we will.
I think we will. Thank you all for watching us. All the fans that wrote in your comments, we appreciate them. I hope we got to some of your questions. And make sure next week also download that FanCred app. You can join us as Matthew just did on the fan line. And we will see you next Thursday, 8 o'clock p.m. on Inside Baseball. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.